Saanich North and the Islands.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to speak to Bill 2, the Municipalities Enabling and Validating Number 4 Amendment Act 2022. Just echoing the comments of my colleague from Penticton, I think it is important to recognize that it's been 225 days since we first heard the reports on the radio of a very fast-moving fire. Unknown what the ignition point was, unknown, lots and lots of unknowns. Listening to the radio, to the terrified residents of Lytton and the surrounding areas as they were being evacuated, scattering, literally scattering in all directions. It's been 225 days since that fateful day for Lytton, British Columbia. And we now see a bill that comes forward that will help the local government of Lytton deal with some of the tragic results of that fire. I also am a former local government elected official, as are many members that populate the seats of this chamber now. And I could not imagine if this incident happened in the community that I was elected to represent. It would be absolutely terrifying. And as a local government official, I'm thinking back to how I would respond to that. I don't know that we come equipped with the skills to be able to address something as devastating as an entire town burning to the ground. And so I have sympathy for this provincial government in the effort that is a monumental effort in rebuilding a town that in a few moments ceased to exist in its built form. But clearly the citizens of Lytton don't feel that their town ceased to exist. It's part of who they are. A lot of pride. I know a lot of people from Lytton, and just how disruptive, of course, this is. I can't help but think back to the fall session of this legislature and seeing the emotion in the words of our colleague from Fraser-Nicola and trying to put into perspective how I, as a member of the Legislative Assembly, would represent the citizens of a town that burned to the ground. And very clearly it was weighing heavy on our colleague, and that should be of no surprise. Frankly, I think we as MLAs deal with much smaller issues than this one, and to hear the member from Fraser-Nicola repeat day in and day out in question period 100 days or 90 days, then 100 days, 120 days, and now we're at 225 days, pleading with this provincial government to take more speedy action than they have taken. This legislation that we look to today and will be debating over the next couple of days here in second reading and as well at committee stage begins the process of the administrative aspects of being able to start to rebuild the town. It allows for bylaws that are completely in ashes, frankly, for the community to start to put those back together again, recognizing that, as my friend from Penticton said, it is prudent to ensure that records in all of our communities are in more than a single place. And this is a lesson, I think, to be learned from that. Municipal permits the ability to actually start to get a building permit once it's been approved, to start to rebuild your home or your business. So this bill is indeed an essential step, but I do have to echo the comments that have been made previously in this debate, and I have to ask similar questions as to why a bill of this nature did not come forward in the fall session. We spent 6 weeks in this House debating legislation, and this would have been a welcome bill at that time. And so I will be asking in the government questions, I'll be asking the government through the Minister of Municipal Affairs what the delay was to this piece of legislation that's in this bill that's in front of us now. And I think that it is also important for us to recognize that while this has happened one time in the recent history of this province, that we have to begin preparing for the inevitability of more severe weather events in the future due to climate change. And so while we will be in a kind of responsive mode here, 225 days after the event has passed, and certainly I can only say that from the position that I'm in. I don't think that the residents of Lytton would suggest that the instance has passed. They're still living very much in the middle of it. But it is a lesson for this provincial government to learn that we are going to need to become more proactive in our preparation for severe weather events and for the more severe impacts of those weather events. And so while we move to pass Bill 2, the questions, of course, remain: what are we doing in order to ensure that should an incident like this occur again, that we are more prepared to act in a more expedient manner? I think it's also important to note that, and it must be the frustration that some residents of Lytton would be feeling, that just a few months after the fire in their community took their community, we had significant floods that displaced many of the residents that were displaced from Lytton were displaced again because of the floods, whether they're in Merritt or elsewhere in the region. And so, I have I just have to, I guess, raise my hands out to those people who have been displaced multiple times, and can only share love with them to hope that they are continuing and are doing well. But we also watched a huge amount of infrastructure, the Coquihalla, Highway 3, Highway 1, get washed away in the floods. And it must have been frustrating, Madam Chair, for the displaced people from Lytton to watch as every single effort was taken to reconnect. And I want to raise my hands to all the crews that were working on that, to the ministry, to the government, for making those connections once again, connecting the Lower Mainland with the rest of Canada. However, I think that what we've seen here are two very different responses. A response that is now 225 days in the making, and before we see this bill, the announcement was that the Coquihalla had been reopened. And so I need to make the connection, because I think that it's important that British Columbians see their government prepared, acting to become more prepared than perhaps we have considered necessary in the past, and as well that we are consistent in the delivery of our response to communities. There's no doubt that the highway infrastructure connecting the Lower Mainland with the rest of Canada, and I would say the rail infrastructure as well, is critically important to our economy. But so is the town of Lytton, and the residents of Lytton need to know that. And no matter what we say in this legislature, no matter what members of the government say in this legislature, no matter what is said in press conferences about the response, ultimately the people of Lytton and the rest of the residents, our constituents in British Columbia, will evaluate the government's work based on the actions. And so I think that it's important that we say the words in this House and we say the words in press conferences, but that we follow those up with the appropriate level of action so that the people of Lytton can see that we do indeed take the situation that they face, the grave situation that they face, very seriously. So with that, I will be asking questions. I will be asking questions in committee stage as they come up. If my friend from Penticton doesn't ask them before I get the opportunity to. And I look forward to the passage of this bill and to the expedient support and rebuilding of the beautiful town of Lytton. And with that, I'll take my seat. Thank you, Madam Chair.